Shira. I do socials, VP of socials at Olim Advisors, and we're avid followers of your content, and you're a real pioneer in the high-tech world. And we figured that we work with so many Olim, and you could really be an inspiration and a showcase for Olim coming to Israel. Especially, we have a lot of Olim that are really potential Olim that are really kind of scared career-wise because they say, hey, I don't want to lose my career. I built up my reputation. And you're a real pioneer in your field, so we'd love to talk to you today. We're excited. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Before we get into the questions, I just want to take a moment and just explain to everyone what Olim Advisors does, and then we'd love to hear about what you do. And so in essence, we started Olim Advisor back in 2016 to do two things. One is to encourage people from around the world to make Aliyah. And then the second thing is to help them adjust to life in Israel. And so we help people with choosing communities and finding schools. And we also help Anglos who are living here because, as we all know, the challenges don't end when you get here. So, we have a service that helps family with children with special needs and with elderlies who have medical needs. And last but not least, we also help people who want to buy a home. So whether you're making Aliyah or you live here already, or you just want to have a home and you're living in the States, we want to help people and guide them through the process. And Bezrat Hashem, over the years, we've helped hundreds of Olim and thousands of Anglos, and we want to help more. And so we think that, people like you are a good example of how you can make Aliyah and be successful. So with that, what I'd like to do is, ask you the first question and really talk to us about your dream of starting a business. Was it something that you always wanted to do from, a young age, starting a business in Israel?
Absolutely not. So first of all, just a little background. I moved to Israel when I was 15, so that's 28 years ago. And I just always loved tech. I had a deep passion for technology, and I finished my degree in political science, and I had no idea where I was going. And I found myself at a large tech company writing their user guides, which, as you can imagine, wasn't exactly the most fulfilling career choice. And I just literally just started blogging. I didn't even call it that because that wasn't a word. And I sure did not think it was going to turn into a business. But pretty quickly, entrepreneurs started to reach out, ask for advice and help with marketing or their pitch or whatever it may be. And so I'd help. And long story short, what I've learned over the last 15 years is that being a mensch in business is the best business model, because I didn't ask for anything from these startups. I'd have lunch with them and offer some help. And even when they offered me money, I didn't take any money. And I just kind of helped them for the sake of helping. And that, as you may or may not know, in Israel, is a little bit strange. So many of these companies came back to me and said, let's work together. And so I absolutely did not intend on building a business. Even when I was doing it, I didn't think it was going to turn into a business. It's been a crazy ride, and I'm super duper grateful for literally every single day that I get to do what I love. Watching Israeli tech change the world. It's phenomenal.
It's amazing. I tell people that the best kind of job is a job that doesn't feel like a job. And I think that's what you have. And thank God we have that as well. So what inspired you, to kind of expand? Because you could have just kept with the bloggers. And, from what I've seen, you're kind of looking to help more and more people. What's your end goal here? Is it really to build it into like a consultancy business or focus on one or two companies? What would you, if you kind of fast forward 5 years down the road, where do you see yourself?
So right now, I wear 4 different hats. Hat number 1 is startups. Startups come to me by the hundreds and, ask for help, whatever it is. And 98% of those companies that I help don't pay me a dime, but 2% return my whole investment. And I work with them in a formal capacity. So that's hat number 1. Hat number 2 is content, where I write a lot of content for a lot of leading tech publications. I do video content. I do audio content. Hat number 3 is public speaking. And hat number 4 is my work with multinationals like Google and Oracle and others. And as far as your question, what is my end game? Well, first of all, my business is a consultancy business. I mean, I don't call it consultant, I call it advisor, just because usually consultant is kind of short term. But that's what I'm doing right now. And my end game is this. This is my end game. If I can continue this, it's a dream come true. I mean, people ask me that all the time. What do you want to make $1 billion this way or $1 billion that way? I'm like, dude, if I can continue this, it's great.
Amazing. What about the fact that you, in essence, you weren't born here and you didn't grow up here? Does the fact that you're an Oleh, different background than maybe some of the Israelis, has that impacted your business? Does it help? Does it hurt?
It absolutely does not impact my business. In fact, I could show you on my computer that we're talking on right now. I don't even have Hebrew letters. So I have literally never written an email in Hebrew in my life. The entire tech and business sector conducts itself in English. And if anything, English has helped me in terms of producing content and writing and social media. And I would say American culture, I'm going to generalize and say that American culture, generally speaking, is a little more subtle than Israeli culture. And subtlety is the foundation of good marketing. So my Americanness has helped me in my career and has not been an obstacle at all. On the contrary.
And it's interesting that you mentioned about the Hebrew, because a lot of people we talk to think that they have to know Hebrew to be able to get a good job here. And I think things have changed, especially with people working remotely. We're seeing more and more people that can work from Israel and work remotely for companies in the UK or US. And so it's interesting that you see that as well, that you can come here without being fluent in Hebrew and still be very successful.
Yeah, 100. I mean, listen, it depends what you do, right? But in the business sector and tech, absolutely. I mean, literally, like it's hysterical. Two Israelis that work in tech that speak Hebrew write to each other in English. Like that's just everybody, right? Everybody speaks and communicates in English in the tech sector.
Right. And you mentioned the difference between Israel and like the US in terms of the subtleties of doing business. When I go into a meeting with Israelis, there's no chit chat, there's no talking about the weather and sports. It's like, yalla, what do you want to talk about? What else do you find, some of the big differences when you look at the culture in Israel and the way people do business here as compared to, other countries in the world?
So there are a lot of pluses and a lot of minuses. Pluses, I think that I don't know. I mean, I can speculate, but I don't really know where the mentality of not being a friar in Israel or a sucker, where that came from. I mean, I would imagine it came from the fact that we as a nation always had to survive and fight persecution. So when someone wants to come into my lane, of course I'm going to speed up. Why would I slow down and let you into my lane, right? But that's a rough part of the culture. On the other hand, not being a friar is definitely a component in how Israel is so successful, because we don't, if someone says something's impossible, most people will be like, all right, it's impossible. Israeli entrepreneurs are like, all right, hold my beer, right? So there's that. I think that another really amazing thing about the business sector here is that there's no corporate hierarchy, right? In other words, if you're in Silicon Valley, you want to have lunch with Mark Zuckerberg, yeah, good luck with that, right? But if you're in Israel, you want to have lunch with, like, I don't know, the CEO of Wix or whatever, it might take you a week, 2 weeks, a month, but you'll get to him. Like, everyone's 1 degree, 2 degrees removed. And so there's no like, I'm a hotshot CEO, I won't talk to you. It just doesn't, it's not part of the culture here.
Right. I agree with that. When you moved to Israel, you said you moved, a while ago. What do you feel were some of the challenges? And we're talking to people of different ages, from the couples, young couples, to families that are coming with kids, and families that are coming with older kids now, and of course people who are retired. From your experience, what were some of the challenges, and what were some of the inspiring moments that you say, wow, this could only happen in Israel?
All right. So as far as challenges, I like cars. I'm a car guy. Need I say more, right?
Right.
Once upon a time, you would not have to lower your quality of life when coming to Israel. And once upon a time, you would have to lower your quality of life coming to Israel. And now you no longer have to. And you could live like a king here if you're good at what you do and you work hard. But cars here are ridiculous. I mean, like, to drive a Volvo here, you're basically driving the equivalent of Ferrari in America. So that's something that really bothers me. But this,
in terms of price, you say in terms of price, ridiculous?
Yeah. Cars are insane here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you buy yourself a Toyota Camry here, and it will cost you like, I don't know, $50,000. In America, it's like 20.
Right.
So that's ridiculous. But this past weekend, I was in Prague, and on the Shabbat table, I was sitting next to another couple from Belgium, and we started to talk. And I said to him, so like, you guys seem like you're super comfortable in Belgium. Like, are you not ever thinking of making Aliyah? And he goes, oh yeah, I lived in Israel for 3 years. I'm like, so what happened? He goes, everything was a fight. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, in Belgium, I order the plumber. He comes to my house. He does his work. I pay him and he leaves. In Israel, everything's a fight. And I said, you know what? I'm not disagreeing with you, but if everything wasn't a fight and everything about Israel was just easy, then everyone would move here, number one. But more importantly, we know that we believe and we know that Eretz Yisrael Nikneit B'Yisurin. There has to be some sort of suffering. Otherwise, we don't really acquire. You don't appreciate it. So that's that part of the culture, that everything is just like a fight. Everything's a fight. That's definitely something that's a challenge.
Right. I have a friend that put it well. He said, Israel's a mess, but it's our mess. And I really think, I really think that's a great way of putting it. What about the other side of the coin? Some of the inspiring moments where the personal, professional, it's Israel's a magical country. I really believe that, and is a dimension that you don't get anywhere else in the world. What are some of those moments, if you just kind of rewind a little bit in your mind, what are some of the moments that stand out?
I mean, the biggest thing is that everyone in this country, no matter how secular they are, have some connection to Judaism. And so I'll see the most secular tech investor, who, I don't know, puts on tefillin every day or, whatever it may be. And it's just like, really? Like, wow, I never thought of you as the type of guy to do that. But that's the reality, number one. But I just think in general, I feel like, not to get too, I don't know what the word is, biblical here, but I think we are at the, the times of Mashiach. And I see, and I'll just give you one example, but it's endless, right? So a couple of years ago, more than a couple, I'd say 7-8 years ago, I get a message from a young entrepreneur who asked me for help. And I said, okay, happy to meet you. I met with him, and he was a super young guy. He didn't know anyone. He needed introductions to investors. And I offered to help, not for money. There's no, if I send an email to introduce him, I don't lose anything, right? So why would I not? Again, very not Israeli. Right. So I introduced him to a whole bunch of investors, and he said, thank you. And that was the end of that. And I thought that was the end of that. Fast forward a couple of months, and he writes me and he goes, my dad wants to meet you. I'm like, what? He goes, my dad wants to know who this guy is that helped his son for free. I said, okay, I'll meet your dad. Who's his dad? His dad is a very, very big, huge name in the world of cancer research, top dog. So I met with his father in New York, and we talked all about the different cancer treatments that are all being developed in Israel. And it was amazing. And again, I thought that was the end of that. About 2 months ago, I'm sitting at my parents' house in Jerusalem, and my parents get a phone call from their very, very close friend from the US that they were unfortunately diagnosed with a very, very aggressive cancer. Now, I happened to be sitting in their living room. I wasn't even supposed to be there, but I was. Wow. And I heard this phone call, and I said, okay, I know this guy. Who's this top research guy? So my parents were like, get in touch with him. So I got in touch with him, and I'm like, listen, I have this friend. He said, oh my gosh, here are the top experts in that type of cancer. I said, wow, that's so nice of you. I passed on that information. The guy says to me, pardon me for asking, but maybe I could speak directly to this guy that this expert. So I asked the expert, I'm like, can I give him your number? Is that okay? I felt bad asking. He goes, right. Hillel, what you did for my son, you could introduce me to anyone you want. And now I introduced these two. And I mean, please God, this guy might have saved his life. Wow. And that all because I did this small act of chesed, charity, or good deeds 10 years ago to some random entrepreneur. And this might end up saving a life. So that kind of stuff always inspires me.
Amazing. I feel like
that's crazy.
I feel like you're part of a family for good and for bad. I think that's one of the special things here in Israel is when you come, you're joining your family and everybody's looking to help you, which I agree with you is just amazing. And the last question is more just a general thing. What kind of advice would you have for people that are thinking about it? And it could be somebody that says, maybe 5 years from now I want to retire, or somebody that says, I want to get out and I want to be here now. You've been here, you've done that. What general advice do you have to people who are thinking about moving to Israel from a professional point of view, from a personal point of view?
My only advice would be you got to be ready. When you come here, you got to be ready. Your mindset has to be, if you're going to come here and say, oh, I'll see how it is. It's not, Israel's never going to be the 5 towns. It's just not, there are going to be challenges. And if you're going to get scared every time there's a challenge, you won't last. So don't make Aliyah unless you're prepared and ready mentally, emotionally, financially. I know the famous joke, how do you become a millionaire in Israel? You come with $1 billion, right? By the way, I completely, just my experience. And again, maybe I'm an edge case and not everyone is able to do what I do, but if you're good at what you do and you're willing to work hard, you can make a lot of money here. And so
the opportunities are there.
Yeah. Especially in tech. My only advice is come when you're ready, come when you're prepared on all fronts, given that there are going to be challenges. But if you take that into account, you'll get past the challenges and you'll look back X amount of years later and say, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Coming from a person who made Aliyah in the middle of high school and was super bitter and wanted to move back to America, now I can tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Amazing. And I think that's the essence of what the advice that we tell as well is that making Aliyah is not easy. And we were upfront with everybody. Moving to any country is not easy, but especially Israel with a different language and culture. But it comes down to planning. But if you plan the before, if you plan after, then a lot of the challenges you can deal with. And I think that's the essence of our message is with some help. from us, from Hillel, from other amazing people that are around here, you can definitely do it. And you can see, as you can tell from Hillel, you're an inspiration to people. I follow you on Facebook and I see all the stories that you share with people. And I think a lot of people see that and say, you know what, it's something that I can do. So thanks again for joining us today. Thank you so much for your time. And, please God, you'll be able to continue helping people and inspiring people. And, to everyone else that watches this, if there's anything that we can do, big, small, anything in between, don't hesitate to contact us. We'll happily hop on a call. We'll, can do a Zoom call. We're here to help Shira as well. And so, you're in good hands. We're here and we want to take care of you. And so, keep well. That's the most important thing. Be well. And hopefully we'll see you soon in Israel. Thanks so much to both of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.